Okay, so welcome to Module 5 of Security Plus Guide to Network Security Fundamentals. Tonight, we're going to be talking about mobile, embedded, and specialized device security. So this one is going to be a little bit more streamlined, a little bit faster, because a lot of people nowadays are familiar with mobile devices, and they know the complications accompanied with those. Everybody, at least in the United States, we know they have at least one cell phone at their possession and multiple other devices, if not just one. So hopefully by the end of this module, you should be able to list and compare the different type of mobile devices and how they are deployed. Obviously, you already know most of the mobile devices. We just want to go over a couple of new jargons, like bring your own device or choose your own device and stuff like that, so that you get more familiarized with what enterprises use as the language of choice. Hopefully, you should be able to explain the ways to secure a mobile device. We talk about the config management, mobile device management, password management, and stuff like that. Describe the vulnerabilities and protections of embedded and specialized devices. We're going to have some more jargons down there, and then finally explain the issues surrounding securing specialized devices, such as those you have in your car, such as those you have in your drone and stuff like that. So each type of mobile device faces specific cybersecurity risks. And you can imagine the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about security issues of mobile devices is the fact that they're mobile. That mobility means physical security associated with network endpoints is now going to be a big challenge, because you don't have control over where the device actually is. You cannot go ahead and put a door key or an NFC card or a badge for people to use their cell phones, right? So they're not really physically protected. So all the security professionals out there have their own means of securing mobile devices, and the techniques that are being used are those we want to talk about tonight. However, beforehand, let's make sure we all have a good understanding of what is being referred to when we say a mobile device. First and foremost, the tablets, right? These are the portable computing devices that generally don't have a keyboard or mouse. You're dealing with just a slate of glass, which everything is soft and built in and all that. We do have the smartphones, which they have all of the tools or features on a phone, plus an operating system that allows running specific applications and using codes that being executed on the mobile phone or smartphone, right? So this is against the old flip phones of our dads or grandfathers used to use, right? And I believe most of you guys know who are the dominant operating systems in the market. So the biggest market share in the world belongs to Android OS, and then iOS comes after, and then Windows Phone comes after, and then you have Tizen and a bunch of other small players around. But I believe in California, it's a different ratio. I believe iOS comes first in California, because here in California, we love everything that Apple makes that is shiny and is bling blingy, right? So we all stand in a line to buy those devices, and we don't even ask questions about those devices that Apple makes. Full disclosure, I'm using an Android phone. So wearables are the next category, right? These are the devices that can be worn by the user instead of being carried. So they are on the body of the user. Early days, they were just devices that they were counting the steps. But nowadays with Apple Watch, Samsung watches, other players like Garmin, soon too, and like Fitbit, all those specialized devices coming to the place. Nowadays, these mobile devices also are no less smart than what the phones themselves are, right? And they can provide the special functionality to the users. They can carry specific applications. They can do almost everything that a cell phone does, but in a different way, or maybe say a little bit more limited way. Portable computers or laptops also are being considered mobile devices, right? These are the closest to the desktop computers that enterprises use, or you may have used that at your home, or may still use as your gaming station, or any kind of design station at home, right? So of course, laptops, notebooks, or generally called portable computers, they are smaller, they're self-contained devices. Everything is on the same device. They can be easily transported. They can be easily used with or without direct power connected to them. So that gives a huge versatility. At the same time, that brings in a huge surface attack. So the surface attack for these devices is going to increase as their mobility increases and as their functionality increases, because again, remember, we don't have that protection layer of physical security around these devices. There are also computers built these days that they have non-ordinary, or let's say more modern operating systems, like what you have on a Chrome OS, right? Or what you have on just a Chromebook, that these days you can get them without having the dominant operating systems in the market. Again, the most dominant operating system in the world nowadays is Microsoft Windows, different versions of that. iOS comes next, and then different variations of Linux and Unix follow. However, when it comes to the enterprise, the share that iOS, Mac OS and Apple OS, basically, whichever version you're looking at, has, is very, very small. Most of enterprises are Unix or Linux based. And then Microsoft, because of the versatility of the Active Directory, which is a little bit out of the scope of this class, but that versatility makes management of a network and users, access management, all of those goodies about the network security way more easier. For that reason, Microsoft is kind of like playing a big role. And nowadays, their Active Directory can even manage other devices like Apple devices and so, which makes it even more desirable for a specific enterprise that is looking for a solution for their network management. So what you can see right now on this slide, obviously, is a computer with a slate design. Does anybody remember the first device that suggested such design?
Was it the Surface?
Yeah, I think Surface Book or something that Microsoft created was the first one that had this this design, and then Lenovo followed, obviously, and most of the other companies have started coming up with the same design, so that you have a detachable keyboard to the slate. Of course, with the introduction of the tablets and the success of iPad and all that, now we usually are leaning more towards having a tablet and then attach a, let's say, detachable keyboard to it, so that we can have our mobility at the same time as functionality. So let's talk a little bit about what is the elephant in the room that we're discussing. So these mobile devices, first of all, they have a small form factor, right? So they're portable, they're small, easy to use, easy to transport and carry around. They do come with mobile operating system, not necessarily all of them. Of course, the laptops or some of the more advanced tablets, they come with a full-fledged operating system, right? Like Microsoft Surface itself, not the Surface Book that we just looked at. Actually, that one also has Windows. Microsoft Surface comes with a full-fledged operating system, Windows operating system, but most of them come with a mobile operating system. Like they have an iOS. If you get an Apple device, an iPad, they come with an iOS. If you get any Android tablet, of course, different versions of Android come as an operating system. Some of them even have the lighter version or ARM-based version of Microsoft Windows, such as Surface Pro X. Their thin tablet, the one that looks more tablety than laptopy, that one is actually carrying an ARM-based Windows, not the full-fledged Windows as you have. And I don't know how many of you guys are actually familiar with ARM-based operating system, but these are just reduced instruction set processors, which are not necessarily compatible with all the application you may have on your current laptop. So they're more limited, right? For example, if you get a Surface Pro X today, you possibly are not going to be able to run full-fledged Adobe Acrobat Pro on it because they still don't have the compatible version for that. Of course, with the introduction of these mobile operating systems and the fact that they're widely used, I mean, a lot of people are using it, using those devices. And I personally know people who just do everything, all the computation needs that they have is being satisfied on a mobile device. Like they only have a tablet at home, not even a computer, or they only have a cell phone, and still they do everything. But that type of trend in the usage of these devices, now different vendors, different software vendors, different application vendors have focused on providing applications that can actually run on these devices. And the note here is those are now rushing into getting this done, which every time you have a rush or a competition to release this stuff faster means that you have applications which are not well tested or not tested at all. And that itself is introducing security risk. So wireless data network interface for accessing the internet, such as Wi-Fi or cellular telephony. So obviously, and all of you have seen this, almost none of these devices comes with an RJ45 socket so that you can connect it to a cable. And even if they come with that, cable internet out there is kind of old school. I mean, I don't think anybody has seen those lately. Unless you go to a specific business rooms and a specific motels or hotels, and they have this cable, the RJ45 socket cable dangling on the table that you can grab and connect it to your own computer. Otherwise, most of the communication, especially interfacing to internet, is happening through Wi-Fi or the cellular connectivity on the device, which again introduces risk because now with Wi-Fi modality, you basically are broadcasting information around yourself, and third party can tap into it. Third party can look into it. While when you have a wired communication, the possibility of somebody being able to eavesdrop on that is way less than Wi-Fi, right? Of course, we do have secure Wi-Fi protocols today, WPA 2.0 or WEP 2.0 Enterprise Edition and all that. These are out there, and we're going to discuss them later down the road. But still, the good thing about a cable is if the physical access to it is not compromised, your cable is not going to compromise the data. So eavesdropping is going to be close to impossible on the network that is using cable as medium. So a store or they have other means of acquiring applications. So basically you have Apple Store, you have Android Play, you have Microsoft Store and all that you can simply download stuff to these devices, meaning you're not really counting on what type of media that you need to connect to that device to install stuff. Like in the old days, we had these DVD-ROMs, we did have these USB flash drives that we were using for application installation and so forth. And this is not only applicable to the mobile devices. Actually, nowadays, most of the applications we need to get, even on our laptops or even on a desktop, we obtain it over the air and we just download it. The other ways are really very limited these days. They usually have non-removable data storages like built-in memories that you cannot move, get out of the device, or otherwise have access to it independent from the device itself. However, some of them, like some Android phones and such, they come with removable storages, especially some Samsung phones come with trays, SIM card trays that can actually act as a micro SD card reader slot as well. So data synchronization capabilities with the separate computer remote servers is there. So usually they have the ability to synchronize with your other device. In case of an iOS, for example, if you have an iPhone and you have a MacBook, you know that you don't need to manually do anything. All the data that you have is being synchronized. Even these days, Apple has offered specific interface that through that interface, you actually can go ahead and give me 1 second, guys. Okay, can you see my screen? Can somebody please confirm that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool. So we're talking about how they can synchronize. So nowadays between your laptop and your phone, you basically can seamlessly copy paste. In the new iOS, you can just copy on your phone and then paste on your MacBook or do it otherwise. These also come with GPS or global positioning system. In the case of global positioning system, most of the devices are able to locate you. Geolocation is enabled, which then can turn into a kind of compromise or a risk at itself. Then we do have the microphone or digital camera, which is on these devices, which also can be compromised. These features, note that these can be compromised easily and act as a vulnerability. At the same time, these can act as a benefit for you, right? So that in case you want to take a picture of, let's say, somebody who has stolen your phone, you can set up your phone in a way that after 3 times unsuccessful attempt to unlock the phone, it can actually start recording. And now you can see the face of the thief. It can send you the picture, it can send you the video, or even the voice around. So they come with the features such as NFC or near field communication, or even a Bluetooth, which enable you to interface with other devices as soon as your device gets close to them. This is a very good feature. Like NFC is nice, you can pay with that. But at the same time, if somebody robs against you with a reader and your phone has its NFC on, they can read information off of your phone. I'm pretty sure most of you guys have already noticed these wallets that they have NFC blocking. Those are out there as a security countermeasure to make sure if someone actually is going around and having a reader in their, let's say, backpack in an airport, they cannot read all the information that is built within your device. So we already talked about removable storage media. Let's talk about support for using the device itself as removable storage. Those of you with an Android phone, you have the experience of using your device like a flash drive, right? You can just simply connect it to any PC and it acts like a flash drive. You just need a USB cable to get this connection going. Any questions so far?
Negative.
Cool. Thank you for responding back there. Now let's talk about the connectivity methods, right? So they can connect through cellular. This is the coverage that you get from your telephone company, like T-Mobile, Verizon, and so far. And the reason they call it cellular is the entire network is divided into small cells of coverage, but each cell has its own towers, and there is a technology for handing off the user between the towers as you move between the cells. And that's, again, out of the scope of our discussion here. But just know that these are a little bit harder to be eavesdropped, but it's not impossible. So you can never think that the cellular connectivity is 100% reliable and secure. So then you have the Wi-Fi, which can be through a local wireless network, through a LAN, and it can also be through connectivity into wide area networks around you through the access points that they provide, right? Nowadays, wherever you go, you most possibly are going to find a free Wi-Fi, right? And we discussed it last time. Usually free Wi-Fi to me as a security guy is like, oh, you know what? I don't want that internet because I don't know who's on that network, how that network is being managed. And this actually may be a Pineapple Wireless as a man-in-the-middle attack. So it's good to know about those vulnerabilities. Plus, remember, most of the devices by default are set to join any free Wi-Fi. Those are set to join and be receiving internet connectivity as soon as they find a free Wi-Fi. So that's a good idea to get into your device settings and make sure you disable that functionality. The other way of communication is through infrared. This is an older technology for the mobile communication. Still, your TV remote controller or your in-home device controllers are using this technology, but the bandwidth of this technology is not really that high for communication of the high volume of information as we are using it today. So if you remember in the past, I don't know if some of you guys have had phones about like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Infrared was even being used to beam a file from a phone to a phone, but those files are like a small textual files, right? When the files get bigger, infrared is not really capable of doing any kind of transfer, any kind of fast transfer. Like a file that you can transfer less than a minute on a Bluetooth connection takes a day to be transferred on an infrared. And for that reason, most of the phones don't have those capabilities. Every now and then, one of the phones uses a infrared sensor in order to provide like remote control functionalities. But with the advancement of technology and most of the appliances, even these days, are smart, you don't even need that. You have an app for your Samsung Family Home, where you have Google Home installed and all that, which makes you able to have the remote control functionalities without using infrared. USB connections are on most of these devices. Charging still happens through USB devices. The more advanced devices are using USB-C these days. Even Apple decided that, hey, that's a good way to go, and their iPads are now being charged through USB ports, and the USB-C, the faster USB that we have available to us, is being used for communication and connections for charging. However, that can turn into a vulnerability itself. Because now if I bug a USB cable and turn it into a control device, your device will trust it because you physically connected to your phone. And for your phone, that means, hey, you trust this cable because you did connect it, right? So we'll talk a little bit more about that later down the road. So now let's talk about the models that enterprises use in order to provide availability of the mobile devices to their employees, and learn some new jargons. So the first and foremost is bring your own device, or BYOD. As the name says, and you can guess, employees are going to use their own device to do the business, right? And the only thing is you're fully responsible for everything regarding that device, from keeping it functional, getting support. Like if you are using a BYOD and your device has an issue, you have to take it to, let's say, Geek Squad yourself and get it fixed. The company only allows you to use it for business, and that's it. So this is a very popular business model with the smaller companies, right? Especially if they have a lot of temps, so that they don't want to issue a device to the person every time, and then they leave. They don't want to go back and just release the device and get it back and go through all that process. Then we do have the COPE, or corporate-owned personally enabled devices. These are the ones that you actually go ahead and receive from your company, right? Company goes ahead and approves the devices, right? Buys those devices, own those devices, and you technically borrow that from company in order to complete the job or fulfill the job. In this case, company decides the level of choice and freedom for employees. Like they decide, okay, everybody in design department can get a MacBook, but everybody in finance is going to get a Dell computer with a small screen. Everybody in, let's say, cyber security department receives a large 49-inch monitor, but everybody else in the company is going to receive a 21-inch monitor, right? It's like that. Next model is choose your own device, or CYOD. This is when there is a limited selection, right, that you can choose from. And basically, these are approved devices, but you have to pay for those devices to own those, or you have to go through a stipend that your company pays for that. Your company says, hey, you know what? You can buy this, this, and this, and I'm going to pay this much of each price. This is not a very common method, and it has its own complications. If some tech companies have started implementing that, to be honest, but then they decided, nah, that's not the good way to go, and they dropped it. Next step is some kind of medium in between all of these, and that's using the VDIs, or virtual desktop interfaces. One of the most famous providers in that realm, if you have heard the name, is Citrix, right? So this type of working is you have your own device, right? You use a virtual desktop interface to remote into an instance of your own device in the company network, and then you work with that. So basically, your own laptop is just a window to the device that your company virtually has assigned to you. In this case, you need to install an application on your own computer, like Citrix, and you just put in username and password. You'll remotely log in to an instance, a virtual machine, and through that virtual machine, you complete your work. The good thing about this one is company has a lot of control over those, and it's way easier to manage the applications or everything, because the only thing that the admin needs to do is to update your instance of virtual machine. The level of control, the security associated with it, because remember, the other thing is when you use a VDI through that interface, there a level of isolation between your computer and company's network happens, right? Because now everything should go through Citrix. So your computer is not going to have direct access to company network unless that access is through Citrix interface. And that brings in more security into the plate. Finally, you have the corporate owned, right? These are the devices that are purchased, fully owned by the enterprise, fully managed by the enterprise, and they are responsible for all aspects of that device. You can just use it as you go to work. Each one of these options gives its own benefits, and at the same time brings in its own cons. It brings in the cybersecurity risks associated with it, which we're going to discuss more. So, benefits of bring your own device, COPE and CYOD model are management flexibility, cost saving for the enterprise, because enterprise usually is not paying the full price. In BYOD, they don't even pay a dime for the device, right? And remember, one thing that enterprises are really interested in is not being in need of life cycling the equipment. An enterprise who has a certain model of laptop issued to all the employees after 4 or 5 years, or depending on what period of life cycling they have, they're going to go ahead and life cycle and issue you a new laptop, which is even additional expense. In case of these models, you are actually sucking up some of that expense, or in BYOD, actually all of that expense, right? So that they have cost saving, plus they don't pay for the people who's supposed to support you. That simplifies the IT infrastructure, right? You're going to have the best computer for your own use as well, right? So you're going to get a higher performance machine. And then because you have the machine you're happy with, most possibly you're going to have higher performance at the same time. And then less internal services is needed. Your company really doesn't provide a lot of service to you. What are the benefits for you as an employee? Choose a device you like. If you like to work with a MacBook Pro with all of the bells and whistles, do it. If you prefer to have a Lenovo, I don't know, the Carbon X or whatever, just get what you like. You choose the carrier of the mobile device. If you're supposed to have a phone communication, or if you're supposed to have a data communication, you are the person to actually choose it. And you're the person who pays for it. You're the person who deals with whatever is wrong with the carrier. And of course, the convenience, because like in my case, personally, I can tell you that sometimes I find myself carrying 3 different cell phones. It's ridiculous, right? So it's not as convenient as switching between these devices and figuring out, okay, what was in which device, where should I go and find what? But in case of a BYOD, that's convenient. Everything is right there. You don't deal with the IT and all that. That brings a lot of convenience and joy to the game. However, with all these benefits, you are exposing yourself towards the threats. And some of these vulnerabilities that we want to talk about are, first and foremost, as we discussed, physical security, right? You don't have any kind of physical security measures in place. Those can be stolen, those can be lost, those can be mocked, right? You can easily lose those. And along with the loss of those devices, some company information is going to be lost, right? And also those devices may provide access and be turning into a foothold for possible malicious actors who want to compromise your company's security. Limited updates, right? So security patches and updates for mobile OSs are distributed through OTA updates. That's what you receive from the device builder or the carrier of your line. And again, those are limited. You don't have the full visibility as you have when you have the company-owned devices. You cannot schedule it. You cannot, as a company, you basically cannot have any kind of deep visibility into it. A lot of time when you don't update the device may turn into a vulnerable point for a network, especially if that update is a security update that patches some vulnerabilities, right? And in that case, as you can see, that's a big issue. Location tracking is another thing, right? So most of mobile devices, they can provide geological location. And when they are doing that, they create an increased risk of being targeted for physical attacks. Like if I can triangulate location of a device, I can go and grab a device that I need. And again, this goes back a little bit to the physical security as well, right? The other thing is GPS tagging, which is adding geographical information to the media, is creating a risk as well. there was a story about these Black Hawks helicopters landed somewhere, let's not use the names, landed somewhere in the world, and the soldier who was in one of them took a picture, selfie, and posted the selfie on Facebook. So next step for the bad actors was to download the picture, look into the metadata, which provides which location this phone was, this picture was taken, and within less than a day, bad actors showed up physically there and shoot the Black Hawk on the ground. Just because this picture, which was shared on social media, had the GPS tagging, which was showing the accurate location. Also, unauthorized recording can happen, right? If I can compromise your device, it's very easy to start recording through the microphone or start opening up the camera without even you knowing about this is happening. And that again is going to be a threat vector in the mobile devices. So we'll talk about connection vulnerabilities on the next slide. Let's talk about accessing untrusted content, right? Most of the time, you may be sitting at your IT department thinking, okay, all the devices out there that I'm using in my company, they do have an iOS or Android, and in order to install something on them, they have to go through Apple Store. And since Apple usually keeps the store secure, so the applications that are being downloaded from the store are actually kind of trustable. So I'm feeling good, right? But the reality is a lot of users that get the devices for whatever reason, and we don't want to judge anybody here, they jailbreak their devices, meaning that they access the root of the device and they change the security posture of the device so that they can install anything that they want from third party without even paying for that, or they can download stuff which cannot be found on these legitimate stores for a good reason. This is called sideloading, and a sideloaded device used as a BYOD in your network, the network you're trying to secure, itself is going to cause a huge issue, because a lot of time when you get the freeware comes with a price, which is hosting Trojans, which is hosting malware, right? And we discussed it in the previous discussions that we had in this series, and you can go back if you don't remember about how those work, go back to those. So untrusted content can invade mobile devices through SMS, MMS, and RCS text messaging. Easily said, on a mobile device, you have a vast availability of communicating with the outside world. The communication channels that are not being monitored the same way that your communication is monitored when you are on a company device, within the network, within the perimeter, when the firewalls are looking into the traffic and making sure you're not receiving the good information and you're not being attacked by a bad actor or a malicious actor. You also can access untrusted content by just going to the website, right? You can just open up a website. You can scan a QR code. You are going to this restaurant and you feel like, hey, their menu is there. Click on the QR code and then just be redirected to where you should not be there for your own sake of security, right? So as you can see, that freedom comes with the price, right? And also the connectivity and the connections to those mobile devices can turn into vulnerabilities. Tethering. I don't know how many of you guys still do this, but tethering used to be very, very useful when you didn't have a wireless access point around, but your cell phone had coverage and you wanted to share the internet with your laptop. You simply were connecting a cable from your mobile device into the laptop and sharing the information right there. The thing is, if you tether and your mobile device is insecure, now that mobile device can infect every other device that is tethering with it. And again, your security department does not have visibility into this possibility because this is happening at somebody's home. This is happening in a Starbucks store, right? The OTG or USB on the go, right? The problem with this is if you have a device which has the OTG enabled, then basically it can be flashed and it can be compromised because it reads the information off of storage that we can connect to it, right? So that the ability of the external media, which now we don't have no control, and those external medias can have malwares on them, can compromise this functionality. Actually, we discussed the experience that happened in Stanford University where they left flash drives all over the campus, on the ground, in the labs, in the classrooms and all that. And they kind of traced to see how many of those end up on the computers. And many of those actually ended up on the computers because people are like, hey, let me see what is on this USB flash drive. Let me see. And they connect it. And then that can basically turn into a source of infection for that device. Also, the USB cables themselves, right? They can be malicious. A USB cable could be embedded with a Wi-Fi controller that can receive commands from a nearby device to send malicious commands to the connected mobile device. So you go to this store that graciously is providing these USB cables that are coming out of a hole in the wall, and you just connect it to your device to charge your device. But as soon as you connect it, your device is gonna recognize it as external device. And if you have noticed, most of mobile devices really don't have a security over the USB cable connectivity. So you connect it, your device recognize it like when you connect a keyboard to a new computer, right? And the computer says, okay, this is a keyboard. This is safe. I'm going to work with it, right? Same thing is going to happen over there. And then the device can be compromised. Finally, a lot of people turn their devices into hotspots, especially in the parties and all that, when you don't have wireless coverage. So a hotspot is a location where users can access the internet with a wireless signal that is being generated from another mobile device. And because public hotspots are beyond the control of the IT department or security department, any attacker can actually create those. A good example is the Pineapple Wi-Fi. They can just create a wireless. Let's say they go to Union Square, sit there, set up a wireless, which is called Union Square Free Wireless, which is going through a Pineapple. That's the hacking device as we discussed before, right? And everybody around automatically gets connected to this free Wi-Fi, especially tourists and people who don't really know. And they're like, oh my God, they provide free Wi-Fi here to tourists, right? They get connected, and now all of that communication goes through the praying eyes of the malicious actor, which is sitting there providing that hotspot. If this happens to a company device, of course, now you gain access to the valuable information of the company. So now that we talked about the devices themselves, now that we talked about the risks associated there, let's talk about how actually we can protect the device. First thing, and this is not only about the mobile devices, it's about any endpoint, is the device configuration. It is critical to make sure all the configuration on the device are set properly. We discussed it earlier in this lecture that you don't want to let your device connect automatically to the Wi-Fi. So for that reason, you want to go ahead in the configuration and close it. If you don't use applications, if you don't use services, you want to go in and you want to disable those. You want to put strong authentication in place, Face ID, fingerprints, PIN, passcode, anything. You want to make sure that if you leave your phone behind, nobody can pick it up and simply just get into there. Especially in case of patterns, be really careful, because If somebody is shoulder surfing you when you are putting your pattern in, and let me just show you this one. Let's say you have a pattern like this, right? I can easily look over your shoulder and see how you move your finger. It's very easy to be detected. So be very careful on the pattern. Either makes it super complicated, complex, something that you remember and other people cannot trace your fingers, or just don't use it, right? You can have complex passwords like 8-character passwords and all that. Don't use 4-digit pins. Don't use 2, 3-digit pins and all that. Good news is most of the new operating systems are not even allowing you to use that, right? Which is good news, because it means even if users are not educated and trained in security, now they have to follow the right path. Again, go back to all of your configurations. I always recommend people, whenever you get a mobile device in your hand, go to the setting and visit every single corner of settings one by one and think from cybersecurity perspective. Do I need this feature? And disable those if you don't need them. Remember, the two principles which are playing a big role in making that decision are list privileges and need to know basis. So you want to provide the least privileges to everything in your cell phone. As long as they can function properly, you don't want to give them no other privileges. These days, most of the operating systems have mandated the application developers to get permission from user on what type of access they are going to be granted to the device. So think about it. If you have a game that you downloaded for free, what is the reason to let the device access your microphone and camera? And I'm pretty sure all of you have noticed this multiple times, that you install the device and you install the game on the device, and the first thing the game is asking you, hey, this game wants to access your contact. This game wants to access your camera. This game wants to access so and so. The question is, okay, I can play this game without that access. Is of course, a freeware that you download, that freeware needs to make money. And how they make money? Through advertisement, through selling information about the activities and all that. And I want you to go in and make sure you're disabling and disallowing anything that the application doesn't need to work properly. The other thing is manage the encryption, right? Early versions of most of the mobile OSs, right, encrypted everything on the device, right, which is full disk encryption every time the device is locked. So when you unlock the device, basically they decrypt it for the access, and then when it goes locked, everything gets encrypted. These days, that full level of encryption has changed a little bit. However, what you can do is you can set your device so that it encrypts everything or wipes everything up when multiple unsuccessful attempts to decryption happens on your device, right? So another technique is segmenting the storage. Basically, dividing your storage, separating everything that is super valuable for you from whatever is not super valuable for you, right? And apply the controls to that section that brings in more functionality and better performance to unencrypted section. And the other part of the storage, which is encrypted, is going to provide more security and a little bit less performance, right? The other thing is, you can actually have your business information on an SD or a micro SD that you can easily remove from the device, and everything else on the device itself. And whenever you don't need that information, just pull it out and leave it at home. These are, and remember, like what we discussed in the CIA concept, the more confidentiality measures, because all of these are confidentiality measures, right? The more of these you apply, the less availability you're going to have. So it's going to be a little bit more cumbersome to work with the system. Enable loss or theft services. A lot of phones these days have those, like Find My iPhone, Find My Device. Android provides that as well. Make sure you enable that as soon as you get it. So when it is being stolen, you can remotely go there. Actually, most of these give you the option to wipe the device off any information remotely. So when your device is lost, just go there, wipe it off, and make sure that information is not in the hands of those who should not be. Right. And then, of course, as you can see, there are many ways to make sure your device is not being lost. Applying physical security on the move, like keeping your mobile out of sight, attaching a lanyard, right? Don't get super distracted, and all of those goodies, which depends on which area of the world you're traveling to, what is the situation. But at the end of the day, at one point, all of us need to pull that device out and talk on it or work on it. And that's when you're going to get exposed to the possibility of the theft. Having a lanyard for people like me, at least, because I have tendency to leave my phones behind. So I have attached long lanyards to them so that at least I can see where they are and just pull them out and carry them with me. Also set some rules with yourselves. Okay, whenever I'm going to have a coffee, I'm not going to take my work phones with me, or I'm just going to take them out with me when I'm on the hours and stuff like that. So there are some security features that come with the mobile devices, like they come with an alarm. They have the last known location that you can enable. You have the locate through the remote applications. You can lock them out and you can take photos of whomever has stolen your device, especially some of them have this preloaded functionality that if somebody enters like 3 times wrong password, then the photo is being taken as getting uploaded to the cloud, so you have access to it. But on the new Find My Device or Find My Phone or stuff like that, they are providing features that you can actually go to your device, open up the camera remotely, and take a picture from both cameras, right? Those are good features in place. Now that we talked about the devices, security features, and actually vulnerabilities associated, let's talk about how enterprises can actually manage the mobile devices. There are a couple of mobile management tools out there these days. You have the MDMs, or mobile device management tools. They allow device to be managed remotely by an organization, something like Find My Phone, but now in the larger scale for all the mobile devices that the specific organization is allowing to connect to their network. I think if you have set up Outlook for school or something, or a job or business, you have noticed that a warning comes up that the administrator of this organization wants to have permission to wipe this device off or to do so and so on the device. These are the requirements that MDMs add to the process of setting up a device for remote access. Then you do have the mobile application management, or MAM, which covers application management, which compromises the tools and services responsible for distributing and controlling access to the app. Mobile content management, or MCM, which supports the creation and subsequent editing and modification of digital content by mobile employees. You have the UEM, or Unified Endpoint Management. This is not just for mobile devices, but generally is a group or class of software tools, like a toolbox, with a single management interface for mobile devices as well as computer devices. It provides capabilities for managing and securing mobile devices, application softwares, and any kind of content that you have on those devices. Most of these act like a SIM. They gather information, but the difference is they have actuators and agents installed on the devices, which through those agents, the commands can come all the way down to the mobile devices and actually get executed on the mobile device. Let's do a knowledge check activity, guys. So who can answer this one? Which enterprise deployment model of mobile devices stores sensitive applications and data on a remote server? This is the keyword, on a remote server that you can access through a device, a smartphone, laptop, whatever.
VDI.
VDI virtually. That's the
Yeah.
keyword.
Exactly. Great. So again, the keyword there is this remote server, right? So the answer is VDI. And a lot of companies, guys, are implementing that because that model is bringing the best of all worlds into just one place. One more. Which mobile management tool provides capabilities for managing and securing mobile devices, applications, and content?
UEM.
C.
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 So it looks like a lot of you guys were listening, right? The correct answer is UEM, Unified Endpoint Management. Most of the companies, to be honest, are using this rather than anything else. Okay. Next, we want to go for fun systems, right? Embedded systems and specialized devices. Computing capabilities built into a hardware specified and specialized for a purpose as what we call an embedded system. If you look at your car has something called ECU, electronic control unit, right? That's basically an embedded system. It has hardware and the software needed to fulfill a task, right? That combination is as limited as possible because those are purposeful, right? They are built for a purpose. Like an ECU is supposed to control your combustion in the engine. And that's the goal it has, right? So even though these are super reduced in the functionality and therefore the surface attack, the attack surface is reduced as well, they still can pose security risks, right? Let's talk about the devices first, and then we talk about the risks and mitigations at the end. So categories of embedded and specialized devices include the hardware and software that can be used to create these devices, a specialized system, industrial system, other devices, and IoT are all that we're going to cover. So one good example is Raspberry Pi. Does anybody know any other device that acts like Raspberry Pi, like a microcontroller that you can load commands to it? The name starts with an A. Anyone is familiar with Arduino? Okay, never heard about it.
Yes.
Oh yeah, cool, cool. So Raspberry Pi is literally a small computer, right? These are cheap, and as cheap as I believe back then, I purchased a couple of these for 20 bucks, 25 bucks, something in that whereabouts when they came out. And you can just install any lightweight version of Linux on it, and then you have a full computer. So now you can turn it into an embedded system to do anything that you want it to do, right? They usually have system on chip, like Raspberry Pi has a system on chip, right? Which is combination of all the required circuits that you need in just one chip. However, the latest versions that they updated came with the I/O controller and other stuff, basically in different chips. So newer version of Raspberry Pi that you get are coming with multiple chips on them. FPGA or field programmable gate array is a hardware chip that can be programmed by the user to carry out one or more logical operations. And now we're talking Arduino there, right there. So no matter which technology is being used, these are usually being used in heavily controllable industrial systems. So the ICSs or industrial control systems are basically implementing these as actuators, as sensors, as the remote readers, right? Like what PG&E does with the smart meters, right? They have these smart meters at the homes, but they measure the amount of utilities consumed and utilities actually produced. Like you see some people, they have a solar panel on top of their roof. They produce energy. So the smart meters, which are a kind of embedded systems, read how much they consume and then how much they actually produce. And between these two, they're going to decide, okay, how much they owe PG&E and all that. These are remotely accessible, these are remotely readable and remotely actuatable in some occasions. There are also other embedded systems for medical devices, right? Or even for the cars that we drive, as we discussed, right? All in all together, these can work individually, or they can work under a big management system like an SCADA, which is a short for supervisory control and data acquisition system, like electric SCADA, gas SCADA, right? Different type of supervisory and acquisition systems. Basically, in a SCADA, reads all the information, analyzes the information, makes the decision, and actually issues the commands. But all of these decisions are all based on the information being read off of these embedded systems, right? Which, if compromised, can turn into a huge security risk. So when we look at these devices and like the smart meters, for example, right? Or any kind of other embedded devices, they usually have a counterpart which doesn't have the embedded system in there. So basically it's just a reader or just an actuator. And this table that you're looking at, we do have a comparison between how a smart meter compares to an analog meter when it comes to different actions, right? Let's just quickly go over this table to get a better idea of what are the differences, right? So when it comes to meter reading, with the analog meter, you need a PG&E employee visit your home, physically look at the meter, take a reading, go and apply it in the system. While the smart meter reads it and then transmits it automatically to the company. When it comes to servicing, there is an annual servicing required to maintain the accuracy of the analog meter you have, while a smart meter just needs to replace the battery every 20 years, which most possibly by the time they need to change the battery of it, there is a way better version of it available that is going to substitute it. So virtually it is service free. When it comes to tamper protection, right? Data must be analyzed over long periods to identify anomalies. Like when you have an analog meter, PG&E should compare 2, 3, 4 years of consumption to see if, okay, they usually used to consume equivalent of $300 in September to cool their home, but now all of a sudden they're using only like $5 in September. So there is something fishy. Let's look into it. While a smart meter can alert utility as soon as you start tampering, right? Or as soon as you start changing something that should not change on the meter side. Also, an analog meter does not provide any emergency communication, while the smart meter can transmit notification of the problem to the company, right? They call it last gasp, right? So if you have any kind of issue at your place, which may lead to a hazard, it's going to be sent to the company, and company may react and disconnect your power or something like that, right? So just having that operating system embedded into the device makes it way more functional. However, now I have a smart meter that if I can, and only if I can, successfully tamper with the application in there, I may even be able to use it as a foothold to go and attack PG&E. Well, I cannot do it with an analog meter. A couple of years ago in DEF CON in Las Vegas, a 16-year-old kid literally showed that he can compromise Nevada utility company, I'm not going to talk about the name, through the smart meters they have. He literally showed it from a home with solar panels on the roof. and a smart meter, he compromised the company. So you have to understand every time you bring in an embedded system, every time you bring in a digital or smart system, you are bringing in the possibility of compromise at the same time, introducing more risks. I'm not going to talk that much more about the cars and stuff. This slide is just here to give you an idea about multiple systems that you have in a car without noticing, which all of them are embedded devices, smart devices, right? And just use your imagination and think about if they can get compromised, what can happen to you? Just on a broader spectrum. Most of you guys are familiar with autopilot on Tesla machines, right? So if the Tesla car's autopilot can be compromised, I can easily drive you to the point that I want, right? I can disable the steering wheel, lock the doors, and don't let you even get out of the car, and so on and so forth. So the more we advance in use of the embedded systems in the cars and the utilities in our life, in our surrounding, the more we actually are introducing risk, which in that case, you can be compromised through. Other type of these specialized systems could be found in your HVACs, right? Especially those of you who are using smart thermostats like Nest and so forth. You know that a simple smart embedded system is managing your usage, when to turn on, when to turn off, scheduling and all of those goodies, even taking care of your system, alarming you on, hey, now it's the time to go ahead and change the filter and so forth. Again, those being compromised, a lot of control over your home is going to be provided. Most of the time, this is not really a big deal because you can just turn it off totally and disconnect it. But the biggest problem is the foothold that it's going to provide into a network of smart devices, Internet of Things that you have in the home. Same is available on these lovely toys, the UAVs or drones, right? So there are embedded devices in there as well that can be compromised and used against the system, used against the network as well. Actually, 3 years ago, I believe, there was this government directive coming for DJI drones usage in the industry. And the fact that they can upload information to different countries was a big deal. If you're interested, just look for DJI security issues / government order, and you can learn more about it. I just want to give you a hint to go after that. And not drones, not cars. You look around yourself, you're going to find many embedded devices, many specialized devices that are smart. And when there is software, when there is code, the possibility of compromise comes with it. And you can just use your imagination of how it can be used against the owner or against the enterprise. These days, we do have the IoT around us, which connects any device to the internet so that you can receive information on different devices. For example, look at Samsung IoT. You have an oven that when it heats up the food, it sends a message to you on your phone, hey, your food is ready. Or you have an oven that can automatically detect what is the temperature inside your beautiful steak, and just stop it at the time that the rice you have on the gas cooktop is ready to be eaten along, right? Or you have this IoT fridge that they technically can tell you what you're missing. I mean, I've seen one that Samsung released recently that actually generates your shopping list. And every time you go out, you have the shopping list and you know what is missing from your fridge and so on and so forth. So taking over that, the least that I can make you to do is to buy the stuff that I want you to buy. Again,
That's crazy.
Yeah, actually, these are called family hub. Like look them up, Samsung Family Hub fridge. They have cameras. They see what's inside the fridge. They scan the barcodes. They even suggest you the recipes, right? And the funny thing is, I was in this demo that the fridge was detecting what you have inside and then sending the possible recipe for lunch to the oven so oven can preheat to the temperature that is needed for that. So again, we are creating functionality, we're creating availability, but we are losing some of the confidentiality from the CIA here, right? There is another type of networks, body area networks or bands, which is a network of IoT devices in close proximity to a person's body that cooperate for the benefit of the user. You have this, like right now you have this smart bands, right? They work with the ant sensors around your heart, and they work with the cadence sensor on your shoe, right? Through a band. So when you go cycling, you get all the information that you need. And Apple actually is going further than that and sending alerts when a bicyclist is dropping down. I don't know if you guys saw the new release video for the iPhone 14 and the new, what is that? The new Apple Watch they have. Now, through the sensor, they can detect if you're in a car crash and call for emergency through satellite so that you receive help. And this means your location is exposed. This means the speed you're going is exposed. Basically, Apple knows everything about you. So if I can compromise that system as a bad actor, now I know everything about you.
That's crazy. Didn't it happen? I guess a person was walking near a crime scene and he was pretty much charged for the crime, even though he was walking near a crime. I've heard about that.
Yeah, yeah. And that was not even a big deal. What if I can regenerate the information to show you actually were in the home when you were in, let's say, I don't know, Arizona, because I just compromised your devices, your band. So security issues that come with are the power. So to prolong the battery life, devices and systems are optimized to draw very low level of power. This means they don't have the full ability to perform strong security measures, like constantly scanning, like running internal software firewalls and all that, because that consumes a lot of battery. And now the race is towards which mobile device consumes less battery. And then again, we drop the guard against the security. So the compute, due to the size, small devices typically process low processing capabilities, which restricts complex and comprehensive security measures. Again, running comprehensive scans, running the scans against signature, behavior, dynamic scans, and all that become a little bit more complicated. However, as we move through the technology advancement, the new mobile devices are gaining those. If you look up Samsung Knox, Knox, you're going to see how Samsung is using the high power on the Snapdragon CPUs in order to actually do good scans and have better security measures so that basically they can secure your business side of the home through Knox. A lot of companies, the smaller companies, have adopted Knox as their mandated security measure for BYODs. So encryption and decryption are very resource intensive, right? And they need a lot of processing power as well. And you can guess where we're going to, right? Because of that, they may not be able to done properly on the mobile devices. Simplification of connection to the network, right? These devices support network protocols without advanced security features. And this is something that in an enterprise, you don't want to happen. You don't want these devices to get connected. So inability to patch. So few, and this is the nice one actually, few devices have been designed with the capacity of being updated to address exposed security vulnerabilities immediately. Most of them receive the security patches and update patches on a regular basis, on a periodic basis. But if something is found today, addressing it on a mobile device right today before the patch is ready is not as convenient and as possible as you can have it on a laptop or on a PC, right? Authentication, right? To keep the cost as a minimum, most devices lack authentication features. Just think about these iPhones that they only had one authentication features with biometrics in mind, and that was Face ID. So when everybody has started having the Face ID, as I started having the masks on due to the pandemic, the Face ID was literally out of the game. Now there was no fingerprint to be enabled, and then everybody resorted back to the less secure way of using the passwords and patterns again, right? So the range, not all devices have long range capabilities to access remote security updates. The cost, most developers are concerned primarily with making products as inexpensive as possible. So most of mobile users are familiar and very accustomed to $9, $8 costs online, right? So they don't go for big numbers really. Implied trusts, many devices are designed without any security features, but operate on an implied trust basis that assumes all other devices or users can be trusted. When you start communicating through Bluetooth with another device nearby, you technically assume that device is trusted as well, right? The defaults, man, the defaults are the biggest problem. Username defaults, everybody knows those. Admin, root, support, passwords, everybody knows those, right? So the default values that are associated, and as we discussed earlier tonight, when the configuration is not done properly, when people don't go to the config to change these things and they're at the default, it's very easy to compromise those devices. So over several years, many industry-led initiatives have attempted to address security vulnerabilities in IoT and embedded devices. Initiatives were scattered and did not represent a comprehensive solution to the problem. Governments, though, have begun to propose or enact legislation to require stronger security on embedded systems and specialized devices. IoT Cybersecurity Improvement Act of 2019 was legislation introduced in US by Senate in May of 2019, not a long time ago. California and Oregon passed the state laws addressing IoT security issues that went into effect in January 2020, just 2 years ago. Those require that connected devices be equipped with reasonable security feature, but go ahead and interpret security and reasonable security features, right? Because different people have different interpretation of reasonable. Appropriate for the nature and function of the device and the information that the device collects, contains, or transmits. Also, there are entities out there when it comes to specific regulations, like because we talked about PG&E tonight, there is CPUC that regulates the customer energy usage data handling for utilities, and they have to follow those rules, whether if that is on a mobile device or if that is on a desktop or a stationary device. No matter what, those are the new regulations coming up. This is new field. Of course, new laws are needed to accommodate that. Let's do a knowledge check, guys. So which of the following is used to manage industrial control system, ICSs?
Bravo, B.
B.
Everybody says SCADA. Do you guys remember what a SCADA stands for? Anyone remembers that?
No.
Okay, yeah, supervisory control and data acquisition. Good. That's really good that you guys remember that. So let's see what we did. So we talked about different type of mobile devices, right? We talked about portable computers and laptops. Basically talked about different connectivity methods. We talked about different business models that companies use in order to actually provide access to the mobile devices or allow users to access a specific mobile devices. We said with the use of mobile devices, risks are going to be introduced, risks on top of what a stationary device within the physical perimeter of a company is facing. We talked about the access to the network. We talked about the management of mobile devices, right? We talked about the embedded systems, the security risk associated with embedded systems, and then we finally talked about the legislations. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.